Welcome to AR News. Brazil's far-right faithfuls are not giving up following the arrest in Brasilia of supporters of outgoing President Jair Bolsonaro for allegedly trying to set off a bomb to create chaos ahead of the inauguration of Luiz Inacio Lula da Silva as Brazil's new president. South America correspondent Katie Watson examines the risk that hardcore Lula opponents pose for his presidency. Outside the military barracks in the center of Sao Paulo, there is a small group of about 50 people protesting. Draped in Brazil's flag, they are chanting, "Armed Force, Save Brazil." Some are waving banners with the words, "Our flag will never be red." Out with communism around them, dozens of trampoline tents have been set up, most of them green, blue, and yellow, the colors of the national flag, which are now associated with the country's far right. One young man who introduced himself as Rodrigo in camping out in one of them, along with 4 other people, he pitched up just after October's presidential elections, in which the far-right candidate he was backing, incumbent President Jair Bolsonaro, narrowly lost left-winger Luiz Inacio Lula da Silva. It's a greatest cause, he says, explaining that he is here to stay and not considering returning home. When asked whether Jair Bolsonaro is the driving force behind this decision to stay on and protest, he admitted he is. He's influential on the social network. The thing is, he posts about family, God, liberty, which are our principles, make us stay here. But fellow protester Luca Olivier disagrees. He says there are movements in the bigger than soon-to-be former leader, our voting system. It's fraud, says Luca. He claims Brazil's electronic voting system is prone to irregularities and the same-based Supreme Court is doing nothing about it. It is a familiar argument. Jair Bolsonaro made it throughout the election campaign, providing no proof to back it up, but repeat the allegations over and over again, and that is enough to keep this group of people on the streets. We are calling for something different, Luca says, without defining exactly what that is. The truth is, people here want the military to get involved. I come here mainly because we have a reason to believe that the elections were not done in a clean manner, explains 22 years old Sofia, a law student who did not want to give her surname. Lula da Silva is an ex-convict. Having him become president is basically saying it's okay for you not to be a criminal here in Brazil. She says, referring to the time the presidential elections served in jail before his convictions was annulled. Brazil Judge annuls ex-leader Lula's conviction. Sofia argues that under Brazil's constitution, it fails the army to intervene to take care of national security in cases when there is something wrong with the elections or the electronic voting machines. She says that the armed forces should take whatever measures necessary to ensure the election is correct. But there is no sign that Brazil's military wants to intervene. A report by the Armed Force on the security of Brazil's electronic voting system found no evidence of fraud during the elections, although it did point out some vulnerabilities that it said it could be exploited. That silver of doubt is enough to keep those protesters hoping for a radical U-turn from the authorities. It is a scene replicated across Brazil since Lula won the presidential elections at the end of October. One demonstrator is carrying a sign which reads #Brazilians Spring in reference to the mass protest in 2013, when more than 1 million people took part in anti-government protests in about 100 cities across the country. Political scientist John Medeiros says these protests are nothing like on the scale of the unrest the country experienced back then. But he does caution that what is happening now is worth paying attention to. There is tendency in the progressive camp as well as the media to minimize the protest importance, says Mr. Medeiros. That they are just a minority of interventionist pariahs, so don't give them any attention. But these people are building networks, possible civil organization, and this is the seed for the future of the oppositions that Lula will have to deal with for next 4 years. Michael Parado is also a political scientist. She knows firsthand how these protesters operate because until recently she was one of them. She voted for Jair Bolsonaro in 2018 and talks about having become radicalized before she realized that many of arguments she had read on right-wing WhatsApp group weren't democratic. She says she fell for the narrative which appeared to defend democracy and liberty. But even though Ms. Parado may have had a change of heart, she insisted Mr. Bolsonaro's influence remains strong. Just look at his behavior until now. He's still not given a declaration after Lula's victory, she says, referring to the fact that the outgoing president has not admitted defeat. He legitimizes this radicalization and the extreme right because he himself spent his entire mandate attacking democratic institutions, disrespecting minorities, the separation of power, she explains. Law students, Sophia is one of those still holding out for the armed force to somehow prevent the handover of power from happening. She says she believes the armed forces will actually do something to stop Lula from taking office. It is unlikely outcome that those protesting alongside her outside the army barracks may still be holding out for, but one of that few Brazilians truly believe will occur. Thank you.